to begin.
You're listening to Magrito Podcast Network, celebrating the culture of Chicanos and Latinos one story and voice at a time. Listen to more Magrito Podcast Network shows over at magrito.net.
You're listening to KQBH-LP, Los Angeles, California, 101.5 FM, a community service of the Boyle Heights Arts Conservatory, broadcasting live on your FM dial and streaming on kqbhla.com. You're listening to The Social Primate with your host, Eddie Aguirre. We're in studio with Azomali. Dude, thank you so much for making the time to come out here. You surprised me. You brought your weapon of choice for the photo.
Yes, sir.
I love that. You know, I was just kind of telling you right before we got on air that I came across your work maybe at this point like 3-4 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, you know, I've been following your work since then.
And
dude, so from there, I came across Jag, like, just my horizons expanded here, you know?
Yeah.
So, I wanted to have you on here because, like I was mentioning, is that I like the messages that you've been conveying through your music. For the most part, you don't really hear these perspectives, you know, from somebody who's actually been in these positions, you know, or at least understands the communities that they're coming from.
Yeah.
I want to know how you got into this.
Well, I've been into music my whole life, you know, since I was a kid, and I would go to Colombia when I was younger. I would hear the drums and hear the different rhythms and be like, wow, you know, it felt like it was like another world, you know, outside of the United States. And I've always wanted to find a way to take that world and bring it here. You know, like kind of like how you want to decorate your living room with things that are reminiscent of your home. Mm-hmm. So I feel like every time that I make music, I try to make sure that I bring something from a place that I know is home into my current surroundings. You know, but it's very funny, man. When I first started making music, I was making poetry. Mm-hmm. And what pushed me to actually make my first song was I would listen to this album by that group, The Clips. And I remember I had the little CD player. And I used to always say, man, I wish that they would have finished their rhyme this way. Mm-hmm. So I would remake their songs and then add my lines where I thought it would have been better. Mm-hmm. And then I started taking those lines, I isolated them, and then created my own songs. And that's kind of how it started, you know, just on the path of music and stuff, and wanting to join, bring together cultures that were far away and put them in a melting pot, you know.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I kind of want to know, like, how did you get started in this, the idea of identity? Because, I mean, if I give you my perspective, like, I sometimes feel a little whacked that I didn't come across this curiosity until my 30s.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like, okay, 30s, if you look at the human lifespan, I'm like a third there or half, if you, depending on what you're looking at, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like, it took me this long to kind of figure out or start questioning about myself, you know, and try to reconnect. And I mean, I don't think I could have done it any time sooner in my life if I really take a look at that in perspective, because I wasn't evolved, you know, mentally yet to focus on that. Damn. So I think I came across it when I needed it to, but at the same time, it does make you feel, at least me, like, dang, I think I should have known about this sooner than later, you know? So sometimes it's easy to feel like a faker, you know? When you're just barely finding out and you're trying to have conversations about how to dig deeper.
So I would say that I came across my identity at a very young age because the way that my family was set up, my parents were divorced by the time that I was born. And my dad's side of the family is almost like 100% to 80% indigenous. Mm-hmm. You know, like my dad used to grow up and they would hurl insults at him, you know what I'm saying? Used to call him care indio, you know what I'm saying? Pati rajao. And then my mother's side of the family was Afro-Colombian. So then my father's side of the family would say comments about them. Damn. You know, so it always made me feel like I was kind of caught in the middle. Mm-hmm. And then the more that I would feel that uncomfortable feeling, I used to ponder and be like, you know, what is un indio? You know what I'm saying? What is somebody that is of Afro-Colombian heritage? And why am I in a family where two sides look completely different? So the more that I started digging into it, I started researching about a lot of the different myths and a lot of the different creation stories that are in Colombia. And then I asked my dad one day, you know what I'm saying? He told me, he's like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Somos indios, you know, there's nothing to be ashamed about, you know, and that's what kind of set me off on that path. And then realizing that, you know, genres like cumbia are born from Afro-Colombian and indigenous struggle. You know, it comes from the African word cumbe, which means to move. and realizing that everything around me is this culmination of different cultures joining together to fight the common oppressor. So that's what made me kind of fall in love with decolonization and understanding that a lot of the things that we do are not necessarily new things. You know what I'm saying? They've just been repackaged by commercialism, but they've always been around since our people's ancient ways,
Yeah, dude, it's a message that's perfectly conveyed across your music.
Yeah, all those times that I feel uncomfortable, all the times that, what I'm saying, I've been there with my uncles, and they get a racial slur hurled at them. I'm just like, I don't like that, what I'm saying? But how can I represent for my people in a way that uplifts them, uplifts my people across the scale? And I'm not just isolating it to indigenous and Afro-Colombians. I'm saying Colombians in general, indigenous people in general, POC in general, what I'm saying? I feel like we are the roots. We are the seeds that were buried. And every time that I make music, I feel like I'm letting off a little bit of water into the soil, and I'm trying to grow it nice and slowly, because the information that we receive in life is like water, depending on what kind of water we receive, depends on the way that we grow. Like right now, I'm growing a plant called anthuriums. And I'm growing different kinds of anthuriums in my house. And if you give them tap water, it can damage them. It starts damaging the roots, and the leaves start looking all brown and nasty. But it's because of the quality of the water. So I think, okay, if what we indulge upon from our surroundings and we absorb it is like water, then what are we choosing to indulge in?
Damn.
That's why, I have an album coming out that's a little nudge to Common's album, Like Water for Chocolate. It's going to be called Like Water for Mangoes.
Nice. What was the name of your album? Something mangoes, no?
Well, so there's two. There's Where the Mangoes Grow.
Where the Mangoes Grow. There you go, yeah.
And what's crazy? That's a whole nother concept on itself, because what inspired that little phrase, there's two phrases that I live by in my life. Is this is where the mangoes grow, and sometimes you can find the emerald in the pouring rain. And both of those are inspired from trips that I have in Colombia, because the mangoes are a metaphor for self-worth and self-love, la cosecha of your work and your labor. So where does the mangoes grow? Yeah, they don't just grow in some tropical forest in Colombia or Indonesia. No, they grow inside of your heart, and once you have that self-worth and that self-validation from the nutrients that you bring into yourself and the beautiful things that you're able to harvest in your life, nobody can take it away from you. You can lose everything and still feel empowered by it. So that's why I made that album Where the Mangoes Grow. That's why mangoes are always mentioned in my thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes you find the emerald in the pouring rain. Hopefully it's going to be a project one day. It means that sometimes your head's down because you're going through life and struggles. I learned that while doing a 4-day hike when I was in Colombia. And I remember thinking like, damn, this sucks. Everything in life sucks right now. But while looking down, I was able to find, little gems of knowledge in those times. So, from the literal aspect to the metaphorical aspect, even though your head's down because things are rough right now, you never know what kind of gem of knowledge. Maybe you needed to go through that to look down, to see what's around you.
Yeah. No, that's powerful. Did your these moments when you went on these trips, was it because you were going through stuff that you feel like you needed to just like shift your reality for a bit, or like what drove you to go to Colombia?
Just being unhappy with the situations that I was going through in the United States. So yeah, I felt like I needed to have like a rebirth. That's actually where the name Azomali, where I chose that name. Even though it's a Nahuatl name and it's not indigenous to the grounds of Colombia, through that connection, I was able to open up a whole friendship and a whole camaraderie with my relatives out here in California. Azomali means tranquility. And I felt like my life is full of chaos. So I wanted to create something that would invoke the fact that even if I'm in a chaotic situation, there's tranquility in my life.
Dude, I think it's powerful that you brought up the concepts of what you put into your body, right? Kind of like the water with the plants.
Yeah.
Like right now, I feel like we're in this situation in this world where there's so many options.
Yeah, there's like an overload. Even social media, if it wasn't for music, sometimes I wonder if I would have social media, you know, because just like we're using this podcast right now to spread awareness, social media can be a tool to help,
Right.
but it can also be very damaging sometimes, you know, and I'm not throwing shade to any of our people ever, but I'm just saying that sometimes I'll be thinking like, damn, like social media is just like a sensory overload of things.
For real.
And it makes me feel like in life in general, in the system that we live in, there's so many things to consume from. It's so easy to be fed something that you don't need.
Yeah. You know, on my feed, right? Like, there's this chaotic thing going on where I see memes, but then I follow a bunch of pages that are reporting on the ground in Palestine.
Yeah.
And my emotions, man, they're all out of whack. Like 1 second I'm laughing, like, yeah, this meme. The second page I look at is violence and death. And I come on from the high, from the laugh to complete sadness, and then it just keeps peaking and going down, and like there's no control, you know?
It's pretty scary, right?
Yeah.
I was at work the other day, and I saw something regarding, you know, what's going on with our relatives that are uprising in Palestine, and I was really sad. And then I saw a meme, and I was like, "Oh, this meme is funny." And then I was like, "Wait a minute, how weird is that?"
Yeah.
Like, how weird is that my emotion was able to change so quickly, and it was just like, you know, maybe I should kind of slow down, you know, maybe I should go back to the Palestine video and really look at it and sit with it in my mind before just scrolling on to the next thing.
Dude,
you know?
it's exactly what I've been going through. Like, it's not even an intentional thing where I'm just, you know, scrolling. It's just, you see it, you kind of pass it, and then you're like, wait a second, no, this needs my attention. Like, there's a reason this is here, you know?
Yeah, it's a really eerie feeling because you're like, whoa, like, you know, like, or just being bombarded with things that make you feel like you just bombarded with, you know, propaganda that makes you feel like you have to sway your opinion. It kind of feels like on social media, everybody wants something from you, you know, and even if you even say something to your friend about something, you'll realize that there's an ad that pops up. Like I was telling my girlfriend about kayaks, and next thing you know, like a kayak ad appeared in my feed, and I was like, how is this possible? You know,
Yeah, dude, it's a trip. Like we were just talking about, it's one of those things that I don't think we're built for yet. You know, like emotionally, like there's no way for us to really grasp onto what the reality is when we don't even know what's going on internally with us.
Yeah,
I feel like that takes a lot of work. You know, hence why I feel like when somebody takes it upon themselves to remove themselves from their current situation and throw themselves to go to Colombia on a 4-day trek, that's you craving real change, like real internal spiritual change.
Yeah, because once you're in that rainforest, there's nothing else that matters besides, am I gonna get water? Can I use the bathroom here? Is this gonna bite me? Is this edible?
Yeah.
And what is that? You know, so you just start thinking all the things that you argue with people on a regular basis. You start thinking, damn, you know, like, you know, you start thinking like, oh snap, you know, like I wish that I didn't you know, mess up my relations with my family over things, you know, and you start thinking about more the reality of things, the reality of situations. But even when you're in that rainforest, there's a truth that still doesn't go away. And the truth is that, you know, black and brown people all over the world, you know, deserve happiness and love. You know, that's a feeling, that's a nuance, that's a cultural nuance and a truth that will never ever go away, because it's not just the nuance, it's the reality, you know. And that's why I'm glad that there's podcasts like this, you know, that are able to spread light on these subjects and, you know, interview, you know, intelligent, great people, you know.
Yeah. No, I think it's important, and I mean, it's one of the biggest thing that's been on my goals, I guess you can say. Just continue being consistent about the way I move around. For example, like the last time that I had some sort of realization was I jumped off a plane like 6 years ago, and I did it because I was going through something like super heartbreaking for myself, and I felt like, I don't know, and if I'm being quite honest, honestly, during those times I felt like I wanted just everything to end. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna jump off a plane. If I splat on the ground, I splat on the ground. You know, like I have no control at that point.
You were thinking like, you know what, if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I did it. I went by myself down to Oceanside. I took the trip down by myself, and then I got onto the plane by myself with a bunch of random people. And then when I was at the, when they opened the door, everything's just like, and you're like, this is it. And you're just free falling, right? But in those, 2 minutes that I was there, just kind of gliding, you see the horizon, you see everything, nothing matters, and you start realizing, like, this is a beautiful experience. Like, what am I doing? Like, I should be glad that I'm alive, right? That I can see this, that I can just take that deep breath and feel the goosebumps, and like, oh my God, like, this is life, like, regardless of what's going on, like, when you really step out of your surroundings, it's life-changing, and that's how I feel. I came back down, I landed really hard that I messed up my tailbone for a couple of days. But after that, I wasn't like on a high, on like life high, I guess you can say. And it was beautiful. It's kind of guided me for a couple of years now, where I felt like I remember that emotion and that connection, and it kind of helps me navigate through the stuff that I go through on a daily basis, and it kind of makes you reflect. So I feel like, we have to put ourselves in these situations where we're in kind of a survival mode, in order to be able to like snap back into what's really important.
Exactly. That's exactly. I can relate to that 100%.
Yeah, dude. So I mean, how long you say you were out there for? You were there longer though, right?
Like 4 months.
4 months?
Yeah.
Damn. Okay, so you really got the chance to live with the people.
Yeah, I missed my flight back home, and I just stayed with my family. Yeah, but I was in the rainforest in that part for about a week or two. And then I returned back to Medellin. And Medellin is a whole nother thing. It's a concrete jungle.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because even though it's very city like, you can't take away the fact that it's nestled right in between these mountains.
Yeah.
So you can feel like you're in the rainforest still. But when I was in the jungle, there was so many things. There's so many things that I had the most clearest thoughts that I ever had in my entire life. Even when I was down there, that's why I celebrate the June bug, those green beetles that come around, the shining ones, because I was stuck in a fork in the road, and the group because I went there with a group of people, and I had to use the bathroom, so I kind of fell behind, and I was there at a fork in the road. Now one side led to nowhere, just uncharted, quién sabe pa dónde va esa vaina. And then the other side, was where everybody was at, and I wasn't sure which one. And this bug that had been scaring me the entire trip, flying over my head, and I was like, man, what's this thing? He flew over me, and I was like, oh, it's the bug again. And it stayed hovering, and it went left. And when I went left, right around the corner, everybody was just taking a break. I was like, wow. So, in another occasion, I was really sad. I was eating this little vegan pizza, and I seen the beetle came down again. And it was real weak. It managed to crawl over to the pizza though, and it started gnawing on it. And I was like, damn, I can't even enjoy some, some pizza alone, And you know what? Like, it ate it, had its last meal, and it died. I even put it on my altar.
Yeah.
So ever since then, whenever I see one, I know it's like a symbol of great change. Something real good's about to happen.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Hey, that's a beautiful way to see it. I like to think that opportunities or things come up, and it's up to us to kind of decipher them, right? And if you don't know that if you're not open for those changes, you're gonna be oblivious to this stuff. It could have been easily, just swayed to go the opposite way, and then
of course,
where's Azomali? Oh, he got lost in the jungle somewhere.
Yeah, and that jungle's no joke. They got coral snakes, they got jaguars, they got mountain lions, they have bacteria that'll affect you if you get cut. They have something called the black palm, and the black palm tree is a palm tree that has these little needles in it, and it's filled with bacteria. So to the rainforest is no problem because it's a part of the microbiology and the microorganisms that populate it. But to us, if we get stung by one, it gets filled with pus. And you're in big trouble because in that damp, wet environment, bacteria is rampant.
It's thriving, yeah.
So there's even scorpions, if you go there at night, there's even scorpions that hang on to that are just light enough to balance on the leaves.
Oh, dude.
So you look around and they're everywhere. And you're like, oh, you have to be really careful. So You know, just like, you know, we respect the rainforest respects us. We just have to ask permission internally, put some tobacco down. But yeah, you know, being there really made me realize a lot of truths, and it made me realize how sacred the spiral is in a lot of indigenous cultures, especially in South American culture. The spiral represents the womb. It represents the eye of creator. It represents, if there's two spirals and they join, it represents two people thinking about each other. So, you know, I try to draw those little spirals whenever I'm at the beach or whenever I'm anywhere around nature.
And how do you continue like reconnecting? Like, you just continue connecting with this part of yourself and the world itself. Like,
it's because I feel like even though I'm not there right now, I feel like the rainforest is inside of me in some kind of way. So I think that the very fact that I'm still alive and that my lineage is still alive is a testament of how resilient the seeds of the rainforest are. And that's how I feel like I connect with it. I think, you know, I'm glad that I'm here. And I always try to do something that reminds me of a symbol of bringing life somehow. Like, I have a little papaya tree in my yard. You know, I don't even have a yard, but I made a yard outside my window. I went and I got little, like, these little awnings, those little things to make it seem like it's a little fenced out, just to show that that's where my papaya tree's going to be. I left it potted. At first, it wasn't growing. And then I learned about things like, I learned about something called biochar or terra preta. I don't know if, have you heard of that before?
No.
So terra preta is an indigenous practice that comes from the Amazon, where it's a kind of biochar that was made from kind of different kinds of remains, pottery, clay, organic remains as well, some food. And what it does is that it creates this, you can take soil that's dead, and then you can basically bring it right back to life, and things will grow three times as fast. So at first, first the little papaya tree was kind of like sad. All its leaves were yellow. You know, to be honest, I was probably overwatering it too. I didn't know you can overwater a papaya tree, but once I put the biochar in there and I mixed the soil real well, I prayed on it. Now it's magnificent. I can't wait till it grows some fruits. But what I'm trying to say is that I always try to do something that makes me feel like I am an instrument in the grand scheme of things of bringing life onto the table. Since I was a kid, you know what I'm saying? I used to take little crackers, break them off. My grandma used to get really mad at me, and feed them to the ants. And they would make their little trail and go back to where to where the radiator was. Like, hey, I this trail here. You know, but I'd be sneaking them off food. So I'm a big fan of giving.
Yeah. You know, I like that because I imagine that in my head as you being like a vessel for this cultural wealth, I guess you can say, you know, and we're just a vessel through which we can express it. Yeah. And you know, I feel like you're doing a great job at being able to remember, reconnect, and know that we're all part of this one thing, even the little ants, you know. And that's, you know, it's funny because you know, sometimes I'll see a bug. I remember this only happened a few years ago where I started, like, if I see a spider, mosquitoes, no, I still slap those off, man. But every other little bug, I tell myself, I'm like, who am I to decide the fate of this little thing? You know, and if I can, I'll pick it up, move it somewhere else. I don't know if it's gonna survive with wherever I moved it to, but I did my job in not ending a life form, you know, in a sense.
Yeah, it's true. And have you ever heard about the jumping spiders? They're really smart.
The jumping spiders?
They turn around and they look at you when you put them down. It's pretty interesting. Oh, for real? Yeah, they're real smart. Whenever I see one, I'm like, oh my God. It's like having a little genius.
Well, I think I've seen them. They kind of just like jump, kind of jump around. Oh,
yeah,
okay,
they do. And they're predatorial spiders. They don't. What's interesting is that they're very nomadic. So they don't just set up a web and that's their home. They set up little webs here and there, but they travel to wherever the food is at.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they're very agile because they grab food. They don't sit there and just wait for it to, you know. And you know, back to what we were saying too, and how all this relates to nature. The reason why I'm also making this album called Like Water for Mangoes is because while making these anthurium, while tending for these plants, I realized something. I realized the more that I researched about these anthuriums is that the reason why their leaves are so big is because they're situated in a rainforest that's even more impenetrable than the Amazon. It's called the Darien Gap. In Colombia, that rainforest encompasses El Chocó. You know, and when I visited there, I realized that it felt like nature water, the highlight of how important water is and how conducive it is to the environment was super highlighted, because they say it's the rainiest place on earth as well. And I learned that those plants, the reason why their leaves are so big is not because you can't put those plants outside in the sun directly, it'll kill them. So the leaves are that big because they need to have that adjustment so that as much rain and as much sunlight can fall on them from the bottom of the rainforest floor, that they need to grow that big. And I think it's a perfect metaphor to us, because we've learned to grow and flourish in darkness. You know, and it made me fall in love with the plant even more. I was like, wow, you know, you're like a metaphor for the struggle that we've all gone through. You know,
it's true. You know, and I had this conversation just a couple of hours ago with somebody too, where I feel like, you know, sometimes we hold ourselves a little higher to things because we know the value of having to work to get it done. You know, when there's other people that are just conformist and they're okay with just like the bare minimum, you know, which is okay too, you know. But if you're really trying for that change, like, you gotta push yourself, like, no matter what. And I even told this to my son. I was like, dude, no matter what you do, you're gonna have to work at it. Like, there's always gonna be work, and it's gonna look different, and some of it might be more intensive, so the other stuff might be easier, but you still gotta be consistent. You still gotta start from that zero and build, chip away, you know?
For example, what would you appreciate more? A plant that was given to you that was already nice and beautiful, or a plant that you've had since you were a kid and you saw it grow from a seed, and that's your baby? You know exactly how much water it needs. It even has its own personality. It even needs to be put in a certain part of the room, or else it'll start slouching. You appreciate that more than, you know, kind of like, that's how I feel about you know, when I make music, you know, like, what do I appreciate more? Something that's why I would never get a ghostwriter, because, you know, like, would I appreciate a song if somebody wrote it for me, or would I appreciate it if it came from a genuine place in my mind? You know, and I think that stuff is super important.
Now, for the listeners, I want to highlight some of your music. Like, what can people expect in terms of the messages that you're talking about?
So for my music, I always try to make it, you know, try to put you in the rainforest, you know, kind of do something that feels kind of like a lyrical limpia, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, it does. Yes, it does.
You know, like, sometimes, you know, like, how do I explain it? I try to make sure that I always put my most intimate self into that music. So, you know, you're going to hear a lot of things about uplifting our people. You're going to hear a lot of things about the origins of certain foods that we have, about our struggles, about our solidarity with Palestine. And, you know, for my music, just expect like a visual trip into my world, if that makes sense, into places where there's no cell phone, there is no Instagram to distract you, there is no memes, you know what I'm saying, to laugh at. It's just nature. You know, so I would say that. And I do have an album coming out. I know I mentioned it before, like Water for Mangoes. It's featuring Blue from Blue in Exile. It's featuring my primo Mancha. You know, shout out to Mancha Off. It's you know, featuring Netta. You know, and a bunch of other really cool people. I also have an artist from there. It's from Oaxaca. You know, he spits his verse in Mixteco, and it's gonna be real dope. It's gonna be what I like about this album is that to me, it's more than just the way that I want to. I made it in a way where it's something that I would groove to. So I included the audience in this, but I also included more. What would I want to be bumping when I'm in the car? What makes me feel like I'm right back home? Something that I don't have to try too hard to the point that I'm losing sense of what the feeling it is. Because I think that sometimes in music it's deeper than lyrics. A lot of people say I'm very lyrical, but sometimes I'm not chasing the lyricism, I'm chasing a feeling. What can I say to make you feel a certain way? Well, how can I convey this message in a way that lets you put on my pair of glasses? So you're gonna get something very, very emotionally driven, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, you said two key things there. You know, emotionally driven, but you're also putting that intimate parts of yourself and you're kind of expressing it, right? And that in itself is extremely hard to do. Nobody wants to be, you know, especially in the world where your interactions with people are just short, couple minutes. Nobody has a time to have a full-fledged conversation just as is. and develop an emotional connection with this complete stranger. But when you're able to show your cards to everybody and say, look, this is who I am, somebody's going to relate to that. And that, again, it goes back to the whole part where you make change at a deeper level.
Yeah.
Because you're not preaching to this person like, hey, this is how you should live your life.
Yeah,
You're the vessel. Again, you're just, spitting the word.
Yeah, like if you vibrate with it and if it's something that moves you, then you're exactly where you need to be.
Yeah.
Like I don't want somebody to listen to my stuff and feel like they have to. If you're not feeling it, please skip it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You're going to find whatever is aligned to your frequency. But when I make music, it's like I'm putting out a little signal for those like-minded people.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I'm part of a big group of animals and we're calling out into nature. And we're hearing nature call back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love how you use words.
We're a bunch of coquis, Shout out to Puerto Rico, by the way.
For reals.
Yeah, with those
people
ridiculous comments that I've heard about,
yeah,
that was said about that beautiful island. Shout out to my Taino relatives.
Yeah.
All the Arawak natives.
Yeah, and it goes back to the thing about us being molded in those shadows, right? In that darkness, we have an idea of what this looks like up into this day.
Yeah,
just in this position of the world where we think we're the most civilized, we're still here and calling each other names and just dissing each other. It's like, that sounds like little kid stuff a lot of the time. Like, at what point do we step up to the plate and act like grown humans?
Yep.
And I think it's time that we kind of step up again to the plate and really start focusing on the things that are going to drive us collectively to where we need to go,
I agree.
Now, I want to kind of touch back on your trip to Colombia. Was this something that you just kind of decided last minute to do? Like something like a risk? You took a risk on it?
Yeah, I had just got fired.
Oh, you just got fired?
I had just got fired, but I stayed up with like some good amount of money.
Uh-huh.
It ran out during the trip,
mm-hmm.
And I'm not ashamed to say this, I was leaning on my relatives for help.
Mm-hmm.
It was crazy. Like it's one thing to vacation somewhere.
Yeah, of course.
Even though it's my home, it's another thing to realize like, I'm kind of stuck here.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no job to go back to. So I was just there with my family. I was even looking around for jobs and stuff.
Over there, yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to make it happen. But it did plant a seed in my mind to want to go and do that again when I'm more stable, in terms of like stable in terms of like how I know that I can thrive there, and I'm like, all right, cool. So now as an adult, I don't want my bones to be absorbed back into the earth here. I want them to be absorbed back in Colombia.
Yeah.
So I already have a whole plan, for when I go back there. I'm eventually move there.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I moved from New York, I made myself a promise I would never come back. And I love my New York. I love my state that I grew up in. I love California as well. But this is not, my roots don't exactly need to end here, and I want them to sprout back to the soil that they came from. And in a way also, I know my mom risked her freedom to come here the way that she came here, how a lot of our people come here. And she's like, she's doing housekeeping right now. And I know my mom wishes that she wasn't freezing in New York. She did that for me, and for the future generations and to better her life. It's crazy. We were all living inside of a little apartment building. We used to hide from the census people. It's like one studio with like 4 bunk beds in it.
Yeah.
My uncles, my aunts, my cousins, I never, met until then, primos. It was just crazy, so it's just like, I want that to be the thank you that I can get from my mom, is being able to provide a place somewhere in the rainforest where she can come back to.
Dude.
If I can be that bridge, well, I'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, those are really humble milestones for you too, because a lot of us we have goals, we have wishes, we have dreams, and it's in this, where we're currently at, it's hard to kind of see those realities come true a lot of the time because we have systems working against us. But I think when you tap in and you look a little deeper into yourself, you can really value and give worth to what you have already, and just kind of be more appreciative. And, and again, I go back to the whole thing always with moving with purpose. And I think that's more fulfilling than, I mean, I guess I've never had $1 million, but I will assume that me being able to just understand this part of myself is going to be more fulfilling than if I ever did have that amount of money, you know?
Because even if you had that money and you spent it on the wrong things, it just gave a sense of, because $1 million can help, but unfortunately, with the way that our minds have been trained here in the United States, we just, or in the consumerist world, those $1 million are going to go towards a bunch of things that won't ever sustain us in the long run.
Yeah.
So we're going to spend it on food, drinks. Well, food is necessary, but I mean like fast food, drinks. We're going to spend it on partying, drugs. We're going to spend it on clothing. We're going to spend it on fancy cars. And at the end, that's why you see a lot of people win the lottery. Sometimes they just return back to their regular lives because they don't know how to invertir that plata into a greater thing. So I feel like $1 million is worth just as much as having $10 if you spend it on nonsense. You know?
Yeah.
It's not worth nothing. You right back in the same apartment that you've been living in your whole life. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
You know?
It was just a dream at that point.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah. It's just a dream, and you wake up and you got to go to work again. All of a sudden, you might have quit your job once you got that $1 million. But I'll tell you one thing: if I ever get a bag, I'm moving. I'm not gonna spend it on nothing here besides things regarding people in need. But besides that, I'm taking all that back to the motherland. I'm taking all that and I'm putting it in the house. I'm gonna distribute it across my family. That's the only way that I see it. Because things come and go. Like for example, there's I'm really into like survivalists and camping and all that. Some of the knives that I get, they're worth $230. What happens after I spend that money? Yeah, I got the knife. It's cool. I like it.
Yeah.
But I'm still wondering what I'm about to eat later. You know what I'm saying? So it just makes me see that money comes and goes like the ocean, and if you don't know how to capitalize off it in a way that can help you in the future, you might as well stay broke.
Yeah, right.
I've done more with less money in my pocket than when I get paid. And I'm trying to understand why that keeps happening. And then I realize it's because when I have less money in my pocket, I'm more grounded in reality.
Oh, hell yeah.
I think, okay, cool. I need to get groceries, fill up the car with gas, and then buy food for my birds, and then I can budget that way. But once you get a big amount of money, you're just thinking, you think that you're all of a sudden removed from reality. When reality will humble you real quick.
You're going everywhere, dropping money everywhere.
Yeah, so that money doesn't mean anything. It's just what you can do with what you have is what means the most. Somebody can have $1 million in their pocket, but what's that $1 million going to do for you if you don't know how to build a shelter in the rainforest? What you going to do, eat your money? You know what I'm saying? Like, what you going to do? There ain't nobody to give the money to. It's just you there. If you don't know how to hunt and cook, the whole you.
Dude,
bailas.
Yeah, now, I'm curious to know, like, when you got into this idea of representation for yourself and for cultura, like, was that something that was instilled by your parents growing up, or is that something that you just felt like you had the need to continue pushing towards?
I would say it was instilled more by the silence, by the vacuum where it should have been.
Yeah.
Because I would tell my mom, Mommy, abuelito es moreno. And my mom would say, don't say that. Es colombiano. And I'd be like, what you mean? Like, I'm looking at you know what I'm saying? A beautiful, handsome black man. That's a proud black man, that traces his lineage back to Colombia. And I would tell my dad, somos indios. Before me and him had that conversation about us being indigenous, my dad would say, hey, don't call me that.
He would tell you?
Yeah, it's an insult in a lot of Latin American countries. So in the space of where that culture should have been, I realized it was always there in our foods, in the music we listen to, in our way of being, our warmth. So I started getting curious, and I started being like, okay, but why are we like this? Nobody's telling me nothing in my family. Everybody's being hush-hush about it. Everybody's just saying that we're Colombian, but what does that mean? Because the word Colombia comes from Columbus. You know what I'm saying? The spirit of Colombia, you know what I'm saying, is a whole ideology that they have, you know what I'm saying? no shade to Colombia. I love my pueblo. I love my country. I love my peoples. You know what I'm saying? But it gets deeper than that. Once you remove the layers of nationalism and you know, being a patriot or all that, you know, you realize that what is culture? You know, what are these groups that came together? You know, and that's where my identity trip started. You know, trying to make sure that I could tunnel back deep, dig deeper, where nobody wanted to see because it might bring them a sense of shame.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of people don't know. You know that at some point in Puerto Rico, I'm saying this because, you know, I'm thinking about visiting there soon. Puerto Rico, at some point, they made it illegal to wave the Puerto Rican flag, you know? And it's just like, why is everybody trying to silence each other's culture? Why does the system created by the white man have such a hunger for trying to make us all homogenize to the same thing? Trying to make us all just bland when we come from colorful, vibrant cultures. So that's why I started digging through my identity. And I also met an indigenous man when I was on that hike in the rainforest. And we had a deep conversation about what it is to be indigenous. You know, like, you don't have to be full-blooded. You don't have to come from an indigenous community, you know, because you know that we've been displaced. You know, a plant that you buy that's from South America is still a plant that's from South America if you put it in your kitchen in Florida. It's still the same plant analogy, genetically. So that's what made me kind of really go into it, you know?
Dude.
I wish we could, you know, have this for longer, you know?
Yeah.
I promise to, you know, bring some more jewels and more knowledge. And just one last thing I want to say is that another thing that I'm silently and very lovingly working on with my partner is something called the Mango House, which is going to be what I'm going to name my place when I move to Colombia. That's where the mangoes will grow.
Yeah. Dude, thank you for the beautiful conversation, man. I really feel like it's those conversations again that we don't really have the opportunities to have all the time, you know. Much like you said about having that conversation with the indigenous man during your hike. Like, when are you put in positions where two people are allowed to be vulnerable with each other?
Yeah.
Not romantically, not like, you know, financially or anything. It's more like, let's have a heart-to-heart conversation about our existence and what it means to, again, know where we're coming from, you know?
Yeah, because he could have easily said, no, you're nothing like me. Get out of my face.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, in Colombia, they have something called arijuna. And that means basically like somebody that's programmed with the Westerner's mind. So if an indigenous person leaves to live in the city, you know what I'm saying, they would say that they're living the way of the arijunas. They always say that the arijuna's corrupting your mind.
Yeah.
You know, he could have called me that. You know, he could have made me feel different, but I'm so glad that he said, no, you know, we're the same. And on the sidebar, he also told me that the reason that indigenous people pray with a lot of quartz crystals, specifically in that part of the rainforest in Santa Marta, is because the quartz crystal contains water, contains silica, and to them, water is life. So to them, the stone is very much alive. It's not just some new age hippie stuff. It's real stuff that's been practiced by indigenous cultures forever.
Dude, Azomali, thank you so much for taking the time to share this knowledge with me as well, you know, because I feel like, again, these conversations are going to open up other forms of thinking for myself, and I hope for listeners as well. All it takes is just that one phrase for you to say, and it changes the trajectory of where you're heading, you know? For people, before we sign off, where can people find you, and tell us when your new album is going to be releasing?
So my new album will be releasing before the end of this month or in the beginning of September. You know, it's going to be called like Water for Mangoes, and you can find my music, you know, in Spotify, Azomali. My Instagram is AZOMALI 1994. And look out for a new video that I'm dropping with my relative Melodic Molotovs. It's gonna be called Tierra Fria. You know, we do videos together and whatnot. It's an unreleased song that I have with Netta. It's gonna be super dope. It's not out anywhere yet. I wish that it was, but yeah, you know, just look out for my new stuff. That new album's gonna be some beautiful work. And shout out to Blue in Exile, Cosmic Force, The Family. You know, shout out to everybody that's ever been there for me. You know what I'm saying? Pulques, Jaguar. You know, we're out here. You know, and shout outs to you. You know what I'm saying? Social Primates podcast. You know, and shout out to the world. You know, I hope that one day when my message is fully conveyed, we'll all be there together to read it.
Dude, thank you so much. I kind of want to just bring up, I think you guys had a song. I think it was like a collective song. I want to say it's called Payback. Yeah, Payback.
Yeah.
Dude, that song goes hard. Like, that was like a collaboration between you and a couple of...
You know, I recorded that in Medellin.
Oh, for real?
And you know, it's funny. I had a whole thing written and I scrapped it because when I was in front of the mic, that's another thing that I like to do with my songs. I like to do everything off top.
Oh,
Even so, I'll write something loosely, but when I'm there, whatever I feel is the sharpest thing to say, I'm going to say it. You know, because if it's doper than what I have written, I'm scrapping it. So that verse is the majority. I'll say 80% of that verse is all freestyle.
Dude, that's badass.
Yeah, I'm deep in the equator, but I'm rocking the Arcteryx. You know, like, man.
Dude, no, that's awesome. I mean, because that's what, you know, for people, I've been able to feature, I think, 2 of your songs before on the podcast. Bodega, Payback. I think Bodega was the one with Blue, no?
Yeah, that was cool to make. You know, shout out to Blue. Blue was so cool.
Yeah, no, you guys have been doing some great stuff, man. So again, I appreciate the fact that you came out onto the show. We're gonna start wrapping this up. You're listening to KQBHLP, Los Angeles, California, 101.5 FM, a community service of the Boyle Heights Arts Conservatory, and you just finished listening to the Social Primate. And we will catch you guys next week.
Azomali and Blue. Yeah, I could grab a pencil and sketch myself on the instrumental, but that doesn't mean that I'll capture the other shit I'm into. I'd rather be in a shrine inside of a hidden temple, humble while I'm lost in the jungle and heating up my lentils. And while I'm rocking the 24 karat on my dental, all of us are family, cousin is what I tell my nephew. It isn't simple, I'm wearing oranges for the rescue, cause my melanin is worth more than whatever precious metal stolen from our people, so I'ma die a rebel. I'm the mango tree that arose from the garden in the ghetto. I hit a Blue and I told him let's work on something special, but they caught me lacking inside the store off of Occidental. The shots they let off and fired before the dust is settled, but I'm from a place where you pray and wait for the rain to bless you. The name of God was ingrained inside of a running gecko. Blue and Azomali the truth, and I tell that to the devil.
The kids today don't want to hear nonsense. Now they want the truth. You know, the truth shall set you free.
Yeah, your Uncle Edgar thought the same thing. Truth will set him free.
You can catch me on any given Sunday giving praise to Jehovah. Some chose the quick payola with coke and baking soda. We chose the narrow path, even though it may be slow, but we just wanted to be good fellas like Ray Liotta. Started reaping what I sow, now the hoes play me closer, trying to show that I got heart like I'm Kevin and Paper Soldiers. Tell heaven we taking over, till the Lord calls my soul up. I'ma be reaping what I sow, till shit gets sewn up and open up the doors that the corporations had closed shut. Roaming streets alone while the headphones on my dome bump. Old stuff like Grandmaster Cash and the Cold Crush. Shit is dope as cold cut, nourishing more than cold cuts. Never show out, but I show you up. If I show up, I'm about to blow up. So put your hands up like a hold up and hold up. I got too much to lose to let this go. Bless the soul on the third day. The shepherd rose up. What? Azomali and Blue. The truth.